everybody. Welcome to Simply Cyber Firesides. I'm your host, Gerald Auger, and we've got a great show for you. Over the next hour, we're going to be talking with Bryson Bort, founder, CEO over Scythe and Grim Cyber. The guy is a longtime Simply Cyber community friend, and I just love him. He loves mentoring, and he is not just an expert in cybersecurity, but he knows a lot about running a business. So potentially you yourself have been saying in the back of your mind, hey, it'd be great to start a business. I understand, tech, or I understand consulting, or why should I, get paid by this guy over here when I could just do it myself? Whatever it is, wherever you are in your journey, you might be asking what actually separates the startups that make it from the ones that had all the right tech and all the right service capabilities, but still didn't make it. Well, those answers and more. Today's guest has built the answer from every angle there is. As a founder who's done it 3 times, so he's got the scars. As a CEO who has raised from top-tier security investors, and as an angel investor who now sits on the other side of the table deciding who gets funded. And if you come at him with a vibe-coded app and a half an idea, he's going to rip you apart, not out of subjectivity, but out of objective analysis on what your product is and what the business is. He's going to spill all the tea today. He's not going to give you the sanitized version. This is exactly what we're digging into on Simply Cyber Firesides. I want to say shout out to all of you today. Marcus Kyler, Know Your Threats, TJ, DJ, BSEC, James McQuiggan at 35,000 feet. We see Carrie and Christopher Cahill, Steve Young, so many regular members of the community coming in. I know you guys were super amped about this specific live stream today. If you're interested in starting your own business, or you've been thinking about it, or you got an idea cooking, drop it in chat. Would love to hear what you're all doing and what you're thinking about. Now, I have been looking forward to this interview for a while because Bryson is someone I get to call a returning friend to the show. And every single time he's on, many of you have been here when he's on, I personally walk away with a completely different way of thinking about how the industry actually works behind the curtain. And as a business owner who's like a real business owner, right? Like I always get some value for Bryson that I can incorporate into my own situation. And this isn't a founder who just read a book on startups and then is like regurgitating it back to you like some YouTube influencer. He legit not only has the higher degree education, but he has been in the trenches and knows what it takes. This is someone who has built the thing, sold the thing, walked away from the thing, and then started it over 3 more times. He's a 2-time CEO, 3-time founder across service companies, product companies, and a nonprofit, which means he has sit literally in every seat that a cybersecurity business can put you in. He's also an active angel investor, as I had mentioned, in pre-seed and seed stage startups. So when he tells you what investors are actually looking for, he's telling you from the side of the table that actually strokes checks. This year alone, he was named a Tech Titan of Washington, D.C. by Washingtonian Magazine. That's not something they just throw around. His company just won the Senate 16 Innovator Award, one of the most selective and judge-vetted recognitions in the entire cyber industry for a category his company helped invent. That's how awesome Bryson is. He was also inducted into the Industrial Cyber Hall of Fame alongside people he calls his mentors and friends. And on top of all of that, he's a West Point graduate, an Army officer who somehow also finds time to teach, mentor, give back. And he's delivered a 3-hour live technical demo to a room of 170 serious practitioners who walked away with a 4.93 out of 5 rating for him, which tells you exactly how well he can translate complex topics into something that we can all use. So do me a favor, everybody, if you would, if there was ever a time to just spam the Oprah emote, this is the time. Please join me in welcoming my friend and someone who's going to be helping us all level up right now like a bunch of bosses, Bryson Bort. What's up, Bryson? How you doing?
I'm hiring you to be my my spokesperson. That was the best hype up I've ever had. I do just want to make one small correction. I would never rip anybody apart, but I will give honest and direct feedback. But it's not about ripping folks apart.
Okay, I did try to qualify it by saying not subjectivity, but an objective analysis, pointing out some of the potential opportunities to improve. Yeah, we'll go with that.
Yeah.
So Bryson, thanks. You've been on 3 or 4 times already. Thanks for coming back. It's always an indicator that the community shows up and you have a good experience that you always want to come back. And we appreciate that. So I know I've asked people in chat if they want to start their own businesses to drop those ideas in. Bryson, right now, I kind of want to go through the journey of the startup. So day one, cybersecurity startup playbook, like if people are thinking about like, should I start a business? Is that like typically the seed where it starts? Is like, oh, I want a business, or do you just like, I don't want to work in my job anymore? What's the alternative? I guess I'll start a business. What's the genesis so people can appreciate when that moment happens for them?
Sure. I think that actually ties to a really good origin story of how we even got to this point, which is not starting all the companies, but was, I think, around 2019, I started to realize that folks really don't understand how business works. Right? We work in IT security. Everybody tries to be the best engineer, the best technical piece. Some folks then learn how hard it is to manage other folks, but nobody really understood the chessboard, because that's where the company operates at this bigger macro level, and IT security are just small components of that. And then those companies are competing on this grand and global scale, like all modern business does today. And so I realized in talking with folks, that was a big gap in their education. And so I wanted to put together a class. So I debuted, I think it was like 6 or 7 years ago at DEF CON. I put together a talk on cybersecurity entrepreneurship. And that was the starting point. So whether you want to start a company or not, this is still valuable to you, because understanding how companies run and those factors and where the funding comes in and the innovation is absolutely critical to making you better at what you do and just in life. So, okay. So you want to start a company.
Yeah.
There are two kinds of companies, not the ones that succeed and not succeed, those that get hacked and not hacked, but the two kinds of companies are the economic models of a company. So you are either a services company or you're a product company. And this is really critical, because understanding the unit of your economics is how you structure everything. And I see folks who don't understand that, who try to do different things, and that's where it doesn't work. So a consultancy is service-based. I charge based on people. I grow based on people. I'm going to grow organically. A product company is where most of us think of startups, and that's where I've got an idea. So my first point is, all right, you've got an idea. Doing this for the money ain't going to work. This idea needs to burn a hole in your soul, be an itch on your brain that every day that this thing does not exist bothers you. Because if you don't have that passion, when the honeymoon period wears off, that passion is the only thing that's going to keep you going, which then ties to the attributes of an entrepreneur. So one is the passion. The second, tolerance for bullshit. We take for granted human resources. Never thought you'd hear that on this, would you? We take for granted all of the back office support mechanisms, all the processes, all those things in bureaucracy that typically annoys us. They are there for a reason. They do have some value, even if they can be frustrating. And when you do that startup, you are going to be responsible for all of those from scratch. And so your attention to detail on mundane things, like, for example, I am now an expert on health insurance in all 50 states. I guarantee you, when I started this journey 14 years ago, I was not interested in that topic whatsoever, but it is now so key, because that's how I need to understand to take care of my people.
So I was going to ask you, you mentioned product and services. I wanted to ask you, what's the trade-off between that? But we have our first kind of comment from chat right now. DJ Bisak, who's a longtime member and a community member, said, hey, what about companies that do both? Like, why do you have to have one or the other if you can build product and then service it?
Obviously. I mean, Scythe is a product company and we have professional services. The key is the focus. I don't want to get into debate on the numbers, but you're going to be more one or the other, and understanding the locus of why you're in business is really important. So let's just tie that to raising money, for example. If you're a primarily services-based company, it makes no sense to go and get investment. Why? Because you should be growing organically. What are you going to do with that money, right? Are you going to invest that money in hiring people to sit on the bench? If you're investing it in tooling, that might make sense, but there's not going to be really a return on there, because again, the economic model goes back to a people-based model. So the return, the potential return, is always going to be inherently limited. Whereas a product company, right, I can charge whatever the market's willing to pay. I can spend 1 second of effort on something and charge $10 million for it if people think that has that value. Now, good luck in getting that kind of return.
Yeah.
But that's where that goes. Now, you're going to have some amount of professional services or service-based revenue, even in a product company, for lots of reasons. It helps make you stickier. It helps support the customers because, you want to give them training, consulting, and things like that. So he's not wrong. It's not like a pure play one or the other. I didn't mean it that way. More to just illustrate the economics.
So what's the trade-off between the two, or is there a trade-off? Like, someone's like, well, I don't know what I want to do exactly, but I want to start a business. Like, I should go this way or this way because one's got, a pros that I like and cons that I'm okay with.
Well, so back to that idea, right? Is that I presume that idea is a product, because if the idea is what I'm going to do for somebody, then it answers itself.
Yeah.
I'm going to do it, right? Your services. I'm going to build software that's going to do it. Go to town, Codex and Claude, boom, ship it. So it's really comes down to that delivery and that economic model. What's this? Ted Dimopoulos put out a really good book on information security consulting. So if you're interested in the services base, which I think I would go look at that book. I mean, the short answer there is you have to have built up enough of a reputation for your expertise that people would know who you are to hire you. And it wouldn't be a question of like, why would I pay that person to do that thing when I have employees?
I love it. I've got like a little simulation question, but first I want to drop this in chat. It says Midori K just dropped it. And you said I was a great hype man, but Midori K says Bryson Bort's a great presenter, all caps. I love it. So we had a question from Carrie in the chat, and I feel like this is kind of like a little case study for Bryson, right? He's got an idea for a mobile computer tech repair company, not really a cyber, but it is a company, right? But he's not sure how to market it. Like, kind of take the marketing out of a little bit, Bryson. If someone came to you and said, I've got this idea for a mobile computer tech repair company, what are the first things that go through your mind if you were mentoring this person on business?
Okay, so first of all, this is a services company, right? People are going to bring in their mobile devices that most likely are cracked screens, and you're going to repair them. That's a services-based business. So I don't know how to market mobile tech repair. So that would be then the question is, what's the right way? So first example, one thing that's going to make that a different kind of business is proximity, right? It's unlikely that you are doing like the original Netflix where people are going to be mailing things back and forth. So most likely that's going to be in my community. And how do I get the word in my community for folks to bring their devices to drop them off with me? So you're already starting to see kind of the thinking on how to structure and to sell the business. Not sure how to market it yet. So that's going to be those challenges. I don't know the answer to that.
Mm-hmm. And I'd also say, again, like I'm not in the same, atmosphere as you, Bryson, but like my other first thought for Carrie would be like, is there a market for this in your community? Like if you live in a town with like 300 people, like you might have to go set up your store an hour away in like a major metropolitan area just to have more foot traffic and ability for people to have a higher population of people that would possibly want their phone repaired, right? So just things like that, right? Like your overall customer base, I guess, is that the right term?
Yeah. I mean, again, so service delivery, where's my customer base? How do I make them aware of who I am? How do I entice them to use me? And whether he's repairing, because I saw a comment in chat that we flip this. It's not about repairing mobile devices. It's about him being mobile and driving. The same thing still applies because it's still going to be a physical proximity, right? He's not going to drive, or I can't see, or they're not going to drive 3,000 miles to fix something. So your client base needs to be tied to where you're willing to service.
I love it. Just a quick lightning round question. DJ Bisek wants to know if you're on Codex or Claude as far as like your AI preference.
We use multiple models at Scythe. Claude is probably our favorite.
Yeah, I agree. I like Claude quite a bit myself. It's what I've been using. So I want to, I guess, kind of set something up and then ask your thoughts on it. So when I originally started my business, I was working full time and I felt like I was really good enough to be able to do consulting, which is what I think a lot of people have their initial thinking of is like, oh, I could side hustle or whatever with my knowledge. And then I actually found it really demanding to do the work, but then while you're doing the work, you're not really selling work. And to me, that was like the real challenge of professional services was like, I was either feast or famine. Whereas with product, I feel like it's a little less feast or famine. Is that like, I mean, that's just my experience. So can you kind of talk about people who choose the professional services and like what the on-ramp into that, kind of ongoing operations looks like?
Sure. I mean, when I started Grim 14 years ago, Grim is a services consultancy, and I started by myself. And I went from being a very important person in government to being one-man team by myself, looking at my coffee table day one, going, okay, now what?
Yeah.
And I had built up a collection of relationships in a network. And so I used my network, and I had that reputation. So I was able to use that to start to build business and expand. The end of year one, we were 4 people. And at that point, as you start to bring on the right people, it starts to take on momentum of its own to expand into different areas, because you now have different expertise that you might not have had beforehand. But that's really what it is. Again, you have to have the reputation. You need to be known for that, and you need to have that network. If you're starting from scratch on that, on a pure professional services piece, or again, like Carrie's example, that it's not going to be so much your reputation, because you're going to be I'm talking like B2B, business to business. Sorry, I probably should explain those things. So business to business, right? My consultancy sold services to other businesses. Carrie's example, it was business to consumer, B2C. And so that one, your reputation isn't as important, because what consumer is sitting there and paying attention to the top 10, right, repair techs. It doesn't work that same way. It's a different kind of marketing, where they might be price sensitive. They might be different levels of convenience, right? You need to understand to this concept we would call minimum viable product on the product side. On the service side, it's understanding what are the key attributes to your service, delivery, price, et cetera, that makes that customer then pick you. In the B2B, reputation and relationship is going to be a big factor, because trust is huge.
So you started Grim 14 years ago, and then I don't know how many years after you started Scythe, but Grim's consulting, Scythe is product. I'm curious, how did you decide when services engagement or the service you were providing was a signal that you should be productizing something? Because I'm making some assumptions here that that's kind of how it came.
That is exactly how it came about. I never considered myself becoming a product entrepreneur. It wasn't something that was in my head. I had actually created Grim as a lifestyle business, which meant I wasn't trying to chase dollars. I just wanted a really cool lab with the best folks in the space. And that meant we were inherently limited in how quickly we could grow. And I remember multiple business folks telling me that. They're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I didn't build it to grow. I built it to be a good company. And that was my choice. So that's called a lifestyle company. And in 2016, Target, y'all know Target. Target is the reason and that most of us have a cybersecurity budget and jobs in this space. And they came to me in 2016 at Grim, again, because of the reputation and of the company at that point. It was more than just me, to build them custom implants for offense to test themselves. And I realized that if Target needed that, then there would be the other large enterprises that would need that. And so I took the opportunity to say, all right, you know what? I'm going to take this shot. And I negotiated to keep the intellectual property for what we called Project Crossbow, which was a play off of Target. So we kept the IP for what we built with them. And I hired a CEO to run Grim, and I transitioned myself out of that role. And I basically became a R&D lead with a small team to build Project Crossbow. We did that for 2 years with Target. And then I realized to take the next step, we needed to raise capital to truly be able to bring this to market. And part of that was I didn't know what the hell I was doing. I mean, I spent 2 years trying to take this idea of what I was building with Target and go and figure out, was there a market? Who would buy something like this? What was that? And it was one of probably the most frustrating 2 years of my life, because I would have all these conversations with folks and I approached it like an engineer. I'd be like, well, this is what the tool does. And when you've built something that's kind of new and innovative, nobody understands what the hell that is. Otherwise, it's not innovation. It's just a natural evolution. But when you're innovative and revolutionary, it's like explaining a car to a farmer who's only seen horses. Like, how do you do that? And so I went through that, and it was painful. And I realized, going back to one of the reasons I raised from venture capital, was I wanted folks who had been there and done that so that they could coach me on the journey, because I needed the help. I learned I didn't know what I was doing.
So I actually find it wild that, you basically created, based on what you just said, you created like a new market category effectively in what you were doing. Did you feel like that was a risk? Like, it sounded like you were encountering headwinds as you were trying to explain it, because it's a new market category. Yep. Did you try to like shoehorn it into like pen testing tool, or like, did you try to shoehorn it, or was it just not a right fit and you had to establish a new category?
There was nothing else like that at the time. I mean, the world was dominated by Cobalt Strike as a practitioner's tool. And I didn't think we needed another practitioner's tool. What we needed was something much more broad and much more business-based. And there wasn't anything like that. So here's where I was talking about the difference between innovation and evolution. To be truly innovative is a very difficult and expensive journey, right? Like, I mean, I gave you a summary of my 2 years of frustratingly trying to explain what I built. Well, now take that into, what does that mean for business? Mm-hmm. If there's no category for something, and we all make fun of Gartner Magic Quadrants and categories, but those things exist because it's kind of a summary reflection of the budgets of these companies. And so when you create a box that doesn't exist, there's no budget for that. Why would there be? Nobody knew it existed. So in your best case scenario, it's 1 to 2 years to meeting a prospect, to convincing them you've got the best thing since sliced bread for them to go and get the budget for them to buy you. So you now are having to create a market from scratch, which means convincing people that they need to be budgeting for this to be able to do that. That is a very long and hard road. And it was not until the end of 2019 that we even got our first customer. So we've been working on this idea for almost 4 years before we closed our first sale.
Right. I got to ask you, man, like, at what point, I mean, it worked out, right? So like, obviously it was the right choice, but like 4 years, I mean, did you, like, what was the struggle bus? I mean, were you like, no, this is going to work. I've got the vision. I know it's going to work. We just need the chance. Like, it's like a Disney movie. Or were you like having times where you were like, you know what, maybe this isn't going to work, or this isn't a right fit, or let's pivot the solution and do something kind of like, off of it?
Well, good news. I'm not a psychopath, so I do pay attention to the feedback the world gives me. And yeah, I would lie if I said I didn't have moments of doubt in all sorts of different ways on this journey, and all sorts of different things. I mean, this was not a journey of just going forward and climbing the mountain. Sometimes I sprained an ankle. Sometimes I fell off the mountain. Sometimes there was a rock slide. I mean, a lot of shit has happened. So yeah, I've had those moments of doubts. And that's why I think it's so important that you have the passion for the idea, that you believe you're right. I mean, this is kind of the crazy part of being an entrepreneur, is you're kind of believing against all odds that this is going to be the thing to hit. And I'm going to actually take that as a segue, because I pulled up some stats from my class to kind of illustrate just how tall this mountain is.
All right.
So only 18% of first-time founders succeed. Only 2 in 5 startups are profitable. 90% of startups fail overall. 10% fail within the first year, and tech startups have the highest failure rate. And to give you an idea then of how rare it is to start climbing the ladder of progress, only 1 in 5 entrepreneurs build a usable and sellable minimum viable product. So I mean, talking like you've successfully gotten sales, only 1 in 5 are actually able to bring, and by the way, minimum viable product is what is a tool that has the minimum amount of value, like I need this feature and this feature and this feature this way, that somebody's willing to pay for. It's going to be a rough draft. It's going to be a rough cut, but people are betting on it getting better. So only 1 in 5 even get that far who start the journey. And then 1 in 5 from that actually get an MVP to 10 paying customers. So I mean, the odds start getting difficult. This is a really cutthroat and difficult position. So yeah, I absolutely had doubts along the way, and continue to occasionally go, whoa, how's that going to work? Or adjusting to things.
So, okay. So that's really interesting. Like, I'm really curious because I feel like the question I'm about to ask is something that only you can tell us, or people who have done what you've done, because no textbook, no classroom, no movie is going to really portray it accurately. There's this idea that, like, startups like burn money, right? Like, I think Anthropic's not profitable, but it's like a huge thing. Or, Facebook for years wasn't, or Twitter. But is if you work in startups and tech startups and serial entrepreneurship, are you just like assuming that since you only have a 20% chance of success, that you're just going to burn hot and then just collapse it and start a new one? Like, the idea is that you'll just churn through ideas until you get a winner? Or is it commit to what you think is solid and really try to see it, and if you fail, you fail?
That's a great question. So I don't know how to answer directly, other than I'm going to kind of share how startups have changed over the last 10 years.
Okay.
And to start with, I'm going to introduce a very sophisticated sounding concept that's not, called weighted average cost of capital, WACC. And it's essentially, what is the cost of money? Think about it. From an investment perspective, a company perspective, money has cost. If you think about it personally, if I put my money in a bank account, I'm now getting 1, 2, 3, 4% at a bank account, whatever it is these days, right? Where versus I put my money into my 401k and my stock market, and I'm trying to get the, historical returns of 8%. That's the cost of capital, because if I don't do that, then what am I doing? And obviously, I'm going to, based on risk, I'm going to put my money where I'm hoping to get better than those returns. Or otherwise, why wouldn't I just put them in places which historically have performed that? So previous to 2022, the startup approach is what you've described, and still we'll see in some sectors, which is pile in cash buy some amount of market, prove something, get even more cash, pile that into the steam engine and keep going, right? And where we see these corrections over time is because that means for a lot of us as consumers, where we've been a part of experiencing these startups, you then see the economic correction. So for example, you remember when Uber rides used to be really cheap, right? Right. When Uber first came out, they needed to get people to buy into this idea, both on the driver side and the rider side. And so they subsidized the hell out of the pricing. So you got Uber rides really cheap. And then Uber ride prices have come back to reality, because guess what? You can't do that for infinity. At some point, you need to have a profitable, stable business that makes money. I know, shocking, right? And so that was kind of the approach that everybody did pre-2022. So why do I keep mentioning that year? 2022 is when the cost of capital in the world changed. And interest rates and the central bank rates went up. And suddenly the cost of capital went from basically free to now being 5, 6, 7 points, which meant startups no longer could just get the free capital. Yeah. Capital now cost investors a lot more money. And you'll see a huge shift in everything in 22 and 23, because you had companies like mine who had been doing these things for a while, who didn't change. And because they had raised money pre-2022 at very high valuations, they were kind of stuck at that. Because if you're trying to get more money from folks, well, nobody wants to go backwards from what your company was previously priced at. So you start to get into a challenge there. So for the last 4 years, the startup market, short of the artificial intelligence bubble, has been much more down to earth and a lot more conservative in that approach because of that cost of capital. Now, all of that goes out the window when we talk about AI, because we're in a bubble. All of these folks are, again, like we've seen time and time again, cyclically, forgotten what has happened, forgotten how the market behaves, because they get caught up in the exuberance and the FOMO of these things. And it's like, well, AI is the next big thing, so I'm going to throw as much money at it as possible. And so those folks are shoveling cash. The Anthropics, the Googles, all of them are just pouring billions of dollars into this, because they consider the race to first and the race to owning market to be so important. And this is one of the cautionary things I would offer to everybody to make sure you're aware of. And we've already seen it in this past month, where we've seen a shift to a tokenization model. AI is going to get a lot more expensive because it's not sustainable with its current economic model.
So again, I know. So here, I guess I want to preface this really quickly. So I own a business, but I don't have an MBA. I never studied business, and I always feel like there's things I just don't know, and I'm just kind of like, stitching it together and doing the best I can. Where again, you've been quite successful, Bryson, and you do have an MBA. When you talk about the bubble, I've heard about the AI bubble, and I get that there's 1,000 AI products, and eventually there won't be 1,000 because the market just can't support 10,000 AI products. Like, is the bubble related to like economic investment into it, or is it the bubble related to like use of product, or like can you kind of explain to me like what the hell is the bubble and like what causes the bubble to pop?
Sure. So the bubble is just where capital is being allocated inside the economy. And AI and AI adjacent sectors are receiving a lion's share of that. And as you noted, the return isn't going to be there. We can't have all of them. And so this is what it creates a bubble is you have all of this. Folks feel like they're going to be missing out on the next big thing. So everybody's chasing it, which means there's going to be dumb money in there. There's people who don't understand it, who are going to pour money into it. Your pension funds are going to get poured into it, right? So all this over capitalization is going into it, and the market simply is not going to bear that out, right? AI is going to revolutionize humanity eventually, right? It ain't happened yet. We are now what I would call in the knowledge management revolution of AI, which is the fact that I can just now have easy access to unstructured data to answer any question and do all these analyses. We're starting to see it shift as agentic AI comes out and autonomously doing action, and it's only going to continue to go until we do have some form of super intelligence. And then, who even knows what that's going to look like? But the point is the economics of it. Not everybody's going to be able to make that much money off of it. It doesn't match the amount of pressure, and hence that's why you get what's called a bubble, because the pressure just keeps building until eventually, people can't pour in more cash because they're waiting for returns, and the returns and the economics aren't there. And the next thing you know, poof, and we go back to what is more of a realistic valuation and amount of, allocation.
Okay, which would, when the bubble pops, that results into economic depression. And again, I know like this is a cybersecurity startup, but we're talking about business, and this does influence business. Money, I always say, like, follow the money. It's all about money. So like when that happens, I mean, there's a net zero of money though, right? Because the money's going into the business. The business is spending the money, right? Ideally, it's giving it to staff and compensation and to other businesses for support of whatever services they're providing. So like, how does it collapse down if the money's still being circulated economically?
This is part of why communism fails. It's because you are putting something in an inefficient way.
Okay.
So again, right. So I'm in putting the money toward this with the expectation that this is going to give back what I'm being able to put into it. This is why market forces and capitalism are popular, because they go with where reality goes, right? The state can't continue to prop something up infinitely. So the same thing happens here, because the market will only bear so far, and then the market corrects because they're going, I'm not getting back what I want from it.
All right. Makes sense. We're talking to Bryson Bort, CEO, founder, Grim Cyber, and Scythe, and several other things, but product company, services company. He's just a wealth of knowledge. So if you have any questions around cybersecurity startups, cyber businesses, let us know. I see your question. We'll get that in just a second. Bryson, let me ask you this, just to kind of like level set, since some people may have seen the title, the Cybersecurity Startup Playbook. What would be like the 3 things you would tell someone if they just like appeared like in front of you, like whoop, and they're like, I want to do a startup. Like, what would be the 3 things to like give them some action items for them to go off and do, or tools that they should get, or documents they should get, or whatever? Like, what's kind of the way to get the flywheel moving?
Well, so this isn't, I know you're thinking more like implementation and execution. I would actually start looking at yourself and looking at your friends and family. If you're going to go on this journey, it is going to be a hard and lonely journey, and it is going to consume you. So it isn't just you who goes through it. Everybody who's around you that cares about you is going to go through it too. So you really need to take stock. Are you prepared for that psychological, social journey? Then the mundane stuff you need to incorporate. You need to set up all the legal filings that you're with the IRS, state, local, county, whatever the different levels are. It's going to vary based on where you are, and actually create a company. I mean, it sounds obvious, but you have to go create a company to do all of this. Where folks usually make mistakes on that is the name. Do name checks before you do something. This is part of why you see misspelled and strange names. It's because that way you guarantee that they're unique. I'll give an example. Grim. When I went to go register it, I was trying to find domains. Of course, grim.com had been taken way back at the beginning of the internet. And so I started looking at derivatives, and one of the first closest derivatives was taken by a hairdresser in South Africa.
Of course it was.
Right? So I had a domain problem. So you really need to do these kinds of domain and name checks, because that's something that's going to really cost you later. And then what's the other thing? We talked about that. I'm going through my class just real quickly.
I mean,
yeah. So then the last one is the idea that you have. Most folks are so afraid of sharing the idea because they're afraid someone else is going to take it. If someone else can do your idea that quickly and that easily better than you, then it probably wasn't your idea to begin with. It wasn't that good. And you're not the right person. So this is the biggest thing. Go and share your idea. Get feedback. Get outside of just what you think in your head. Don't worry about people stealing your stuff, right? Go and socialize the idea, because two things are going to come from that. One, turns out other people see things differently than you. That's a good thing. We like that. That means we're getting 360-degree feedback and understanding. Two, people know people that you don't know. Remember I was talking about how important networking is?
Oh, yeah.
What a great way to start to get introduced to different folks and getting different perspectives and different relationships that are going to help you. So the more you talk about it, the more easily you're going to get feedback and get connected to somebody that might become that first customer.
You heard it here. Those are the getting started. Register the business, start talking. And I would also agree, or I would lend this thing. Bryson mentioned, if you have ideas, don't be afraid to share them if someone steals them. I also want to point out, like, you can have an idea and someone could steal it. It is hard to execute. I can give you 10 ideas today. Execution is wicked hard, and doing it consistently and doing it well is even harder. So even if someone steals your idea, that doesn't mean that they just like get to print money. Like, I mean, I don't know. What do you think, Bryson? I mean, are ideas easy? Execution's hard?
I think it was Benjamin Franklin. Genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration.
Yeah. Benjamin Franklin. Nailed it. Okay. So I guess I'll start having to cite him for getting there first on me. But we've got a special segment, Bryson. Since the last time we were here, I have introduced a new segment kind of to disrupt things. You didn't even know about it. I didn't tell you. It's called the lightning round. We will get back to cybersecurity startup, but the lightning round is a quick little couple questions to get to know Bryson a little bit better, especially since you're a regular on the channel here. You ready? Okay. So you've called yourself a CEO who lives on an airplane. What's your airport survival guide or survival ritual, or some ritual you do at airports, or something that's like consistent and it's something that you do with some regularity?
Zone out.
Okay.
Put on my noise canceling headphones and ignore the din. I don't think people realize how exhausting just the noise of travel is. So my noise canceling headphones are huge for me being able to not be just completely worn out by flying everywhere.
So you've traveled to many, many places, many, many airports. Is there an airport that sticks out in your mind as, you particularly like it?
So hometown favorite, I think Tampa Airport is the best airport in the country. And the reason for that is the architectural design. It's a starburst. So you come into a main thing and then they split you into gates of 15, and they have these trains that take you out, and the trains are regular. And so the security line gets broken up, everything gets broken up. And it's just, I've never had a problem getting anywhere whenever I want to.
I love it. So an engineer designed the Tampa airport is what I'm hearing. Efficient, optimized, super smooth. I love it. It's not like Denver airport, which is like an hour away from like anything, anything ever.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And I mean, Tampa Airport is in downtown Tampa too, so it's incredibly proximate. I mean, if you've ever had to get from one terminal all the way to the other side in Dallas, and you're having to ride those trains take a lot longer. They're not as convenient because it's on a loop. Salt Lake City, and Chicago, I've spent so much time walking all the way through to the other things because everything is just so spread out. Yeah, there's some airports that do not make things as easy.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you your an airport you like, not one that you didn't like, just so you didn't have to dunk on anything particularly. Bryson, what's a hobby or interest that would surprise people who only know you from LinkedIn or from being on the show here?
Well, I started a cooking show back during COVID, Unicorn Chef. So I'm really big into cooking. And I started the show because people were losing their minds during COVID. A lot of folks didn't know how to cook, so I wanted to make the kitchen more accessible. And the format was I would just bring on a different guest every week. The guest would provide the recipe. We'd cook it together, so you could see how me and them would cook it. We talked, and the guests weren't just in cybersecurity. I mean, I had Krebs when he was the director of CISA on. We had professional chefs. We had folks in other places. And then we would just highlight charities for donations, and we raised tens of thousands of dollars. So I'd say that's probably my biggest hobby is I just love food.
Oh, I love that. I love cooking too. Like Bryson will occasionally post on social medias like a dish he just made, and it always looks 5 stars. Bryson, it's cool.
Hold
Bryson,
on, let's see what I could quickly pull up.
Okay.
It's not. Oh, there you go. You can see the work I was doing last night. So I was
people.
I was making
mushrooms.
Nope, that's shrimp actually. So I have a technique with shrimp because I hate when so you need the shell on the shrimp to keep the shrimp moist. But on the other hand, nobody wants to stick their hands in the food to get the shell off the shrimp. So the trick that you do is you blanch the shrimp, put them in cold water, peel them, and then you add in the naked shrimp back into your sauce at the very end. And so you've solved the problem. You still have moist shrimp, but you're not putting your hand in the sauce.
There you go. Pro tips. You guys, you're going to start a cyber company and be able to whip up some sick shrimp. I love it. Bryson, what's the last book you read that had nothing to do with business or technology?
So if you know the Endymion series, it came out in the 90s. It's a science fiction story. It's actually about artificial intelligence, funny enough.
Okay.
It's a sci-fi story, right? Humanity's thousands of years in the future in space. And artificial intelligence is its own species. And so it's this combination of how all of this plays out in, wild and crazy ways. Although the reason it wasn't actually the last book I just read, but it was the last new book I just read because I finished the series. The last book I just read because I reread it again is it's the Locked Tomb series by Tamsin Muir.
Okay.
She has written the only book in my life where I read it and was like, what the hell just happened? And I had to read the book again immediately.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So the first book is called Gideon the Ninth. And then the second book is Harrow the Ninth. And the Harrow book was the second one, was just like, I'm like, what the hell just happened? I needed to read it again. So that was the most interesting book I've ever read just because it was so clever the way she wrote it.
Oh, phenomenal recommendation. Final question in lightning round: morning person or night owl?
I have no choice but to be a morning person. It is not optional.
If you had the choice, would you be a night owl?
I just like to sleep, and getting 7 to 8 hours is really key to operating. My problem is I wake up at 6 a.m. pretty much no matter what, wherever, whenever. And if I go to bed at 5, I'm still up at 6. So I don't have a choice.
Yeah. I hear you. It's funny when I go, you're East Coast too. I don't know if it's like this for you, but like when I travel to Vegas for Black Hat, I'm up at 3 a.m. Here we go. Awesome. All right. Thus concludes our lightning round. Hopefully you found those questions not too intimidating or anything. Of course, it's just like a little puff piece, Bryson, but let's slide back in talking to Bryson Bort, founder of Scythe and Grim Cyber, talking about cybersecurity startups. Sierra Montgomery wants to know if you could go back to the beginning, Bryson, of your entrepreneurial journey with everything that you know now, what's a strategic decision that you would change?
Yeah. Don't build a tool in a category that doesn't exist.
Okay.
I don't want to do something that takes 4 years to get its first customer. And obviously we have a lot more than that now, but it has been a really, really hard go. So there's three variables to what makes a company successful. One of them is the founder and the team. The second is the idea. And then the third is luck/timing, right? If you create an idea that's ahead of its time, you spend a lot of time and money, opportunity costs, trying to build something that there's not a return on. I spent a lot of time trying to build something that there wasn't a return on for years. So strategically, I would have picked something that having understood that market response, I would probably pick something more intelligently understanding that or shaped the product more that direction.
So even if you were like passionate about the product the problem you were trying to solve, would you try to try to find a Venn diagram intersection between the product you want to build and like what the market's actually asking for?
Yeah, I mean, so the pivot that I made was, you heard the origin of us with Target. We built a red team tool, right? I tried to build a red team tool that was a little friendlier, but at the end of the day, it was a red team tool. Let's look at the red team market. It is $3 billion of fucking nerds with no tool budget, very little tool budget, very little budget period. You hire consultants or you have internal folks. That's red teaming, right? And they aren't given a lot of money to do what they're doing because they're all the way down on the line as a niche inside of cybersecurity, which is why there aren't actually that many red teamers, right? Most of security is blue team. There's not as much red team because it's just the way it works.
Yeah.
So it took 4 years for me to learn that and to pivot Scythe into becoming much more of a blue tool as a result. Knowing that in hindsight, I would have started making a blue tool to begin with.
How much, and you don't have to really go back into your history much, but how much do you think that your prior experience influenced you to have blinders on that, like, this is a market and there's going to be opportunity here? Hold on. Of course, my camera fuzzes out. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like when you know how to use a hammer, all you see is nails all over the place. Do you think that played a role in it? And is there any way for people who might be suffering the same kind of sight blinders to realize it?
Yeah. I mean, this goes to, again, I had an inspiration from a consulting contract. I then went out and tried to validate the idea and understand it, to understand what the market was, because I started with a hypothesis and an assumption, but I wanted to test it with reality because reality is all that matters. And then one of the things I learned along that way was why I went and got investors to help me with that. But even then, I still didn't truly understand the market and the dynamics, and that took more time to do that.
Viking says, AI is evolving so fast and the growing need for security is growing with it. Bryson, would a service or product be the best to work into that future? I guess.
I mean, the answer is going to be both. It's just technology, right? When IT first came out, there were services, there were products. AI is going to be no different. It's going to speak to what you're going to do. The one thing I will note, and this is where Jerry was commenting on tearing a vibe-coded app apart, is we are saturated right now with the fact that it is easier than ever to make code, which means it's easier than ever for somebody to nominally produce something that could be a product. And so I had this conversation where a potential founder approached me last year, and basically the summary is they spent a weekend vibe coding something. Like, I've got this tool, and I'm like, if all it took you was that much time to build it, and you don't have much of a moat, anybody can do that. And so I think and you actually see this in your app store, where there's now way more apps than there ever was, because anybody can easily now create it, right? That technology, is no longer the moat to putting something in the app store. So we're awash with even more noise. So it goes back again to what really is the value proposition for that. And just because AI can build something isn't enough. And you really need to think that through. But because artificial intelligence, like all the technology, is going to become more a part of things in infrastructure, there's going to be need for things around how to use and to do that. I think one of the glaring examples of that is I have a friend who's a small business owner, not in cybersecurity. He owns a group of gyms. but he has a technical background and he really wants to play with AI, and he's frustrated because he can't quite get AI into driving all of the business operations around that, because right, it's hard to do that. Nobody's built something to like sort of pull that in easily, and there are things that, you know, like Copilot and desktop that make some of that easier, but nobody's really built something for a small business owner. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunities like that to take the tech that's still being built up here, like for the general, and taking it down to those specific business applications where there are markets.
Bryson, you had mentioned earlier, you know, you had the idea for a product and then you went out to validate it. So for people in chat right now, I'm going to ask Bryson this question, but I really, of all the, Bryson's delivered a million gems in this interview, but I feel like the next one is something people really should like take a moment and absorb. So Bryson, when you go to validate an idea, I feel that like you are super excited about it. You think it's the greatest idea. You think it's going to be $1 million idea. And then you tell like your mom about it and your mom's like, you're the best, you're brilliant. And then you tell your friends and they're super supportive. How do you actually validate it? And how do you handle critical feedback, I suppose is the right way to put it. When someone tells you your baby's ugly. Like,
yeah, you need to take that. You need to take that on. You need one of the qualities of the founder is not that you're right. It's that you can adjust, right? I told you how I made a strategic error and we adjusted. Could I figure that out quicker? Maybe. I don't know. I would have liked to have, I'll tell you that much. But I wasn't afraid to make the pivot when necessary. And I made multiple pivots like that because no plan survives first contact, as we like to say in the Army. So your product idea is going to be the same thing. There are going to be parts that are ugly. There's going to be assumptions you got wrong. If you aren't open to that, you're dead, because it just won't survive and shift where it needs to go. That's where we were talking earlier about share the idea, get insight, get validation, be open to constructive feedback. I can't tell you how many folks that I've talked to, because as a angel investor, people pitch me their ideas, and how many of them are kind of like, you're not getting it. And I'm like, okay, well, if I'm not getting it and I'm pretty knowledgeable in this space, that ain't me, right? That ain't a me thing. There's a problem on communication or the product itself. So you really need to be open to the fact that just repeating something isn't the way to communicate something, that maybe there's something that's off there. Again, I share this from personal experience. That 2 years while I was co-developing with Target from 16 to 18, I would go and have these conversations, and I absolutely owned the fact I couldn't explain my thing well because I was approaching it technically. And nobody cares about what you technically built. They want to understand the value proposition. And I didn't know that. I didn't know how to do that. I hadn't gotten that. That takes time. Yeah, I think that's enough.
No, and I'm glad you shared that, Bryson. And I want to share a personal story with everybody in chat. And Bryson, you were there, obviously. So I actually got approached the first time ever. I got approached by someone who's like, we've got this product and we want to know if you want to invest. I think it was $10,000. And I'm like, I don't know. Like, I'm like, what is it? What, and they're like, you can get access to the data vault or data closet or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, I'm going to have to think about it for a few days. And then like, I immediately text Bryson. I'm like, Bryson, can you get on the phone? I need to talk. Like, I don't understand these terms or anything. So Bryson gets on the phone and he's like, well, what's the product do? And I'm like, I don't really understand what it does. They didn't make a lot of sense to me. I think I don't get it. Like, should I invest or whatever? Bryson's like, no. Like, and then he said that same thing he just said. He's like, dude, if they couldn't explain to you, like, you're a smart guy, Jerry. Like, if you couldn't understand what the hell they were saying, they don't understand what they're saying. So I just wanted to resonate with people. You should really, really be able to clearly articulate what it is that you're trying to solve and what your product does. Bryson, I see pitch decks like on Canva as templates and stuff. I know that's typically for investment, but like, should someone like put together a pitch deck or something for trying to communicate validating their product?
I think pitch decks are great because it helps capture your thinking, right? What is a pitch deck? What's the problem? That should be one slide. If you need to spend more than one slide on what the problem is, you don't know what the problem is. Succinctly, what's the problem? One slide. 2, how are you solving the problem? You get to spend more than one slide on that. This is how I'm solving, but again, it needs to be succinct. 3, then from that, who's going to be a part of doing that? What's the plan? What's the roadmap? How is that doing it? market analysis. That's another area I see a lot of people fail, is total addressable market. You can't go, well, cybersecurity is a $100 billion market. If I capture 1% of it, then look, that's a great idea. I can't tell you how many I see that do that in a pitch deck, or we're going to be the Uber of X and we're going to get, no, total addressable market. And here's the thing. A lot of people also poke at it because they're like, I'm being asked to do something and I don't have enough information. No shit, you don't have enough information. You don't have any customers. So how would you actually know what the market is? But that's not the point. It's the thinking and the analysis. Show you know enough to understand, well, this is who I think my ideal customer profile, ICP, who's my buyer, where do they exist, how do I identify them, and how much are they willing to pay? That's what you're looking at. And this is where you can have something that's a niche versus something that's a market, right? I gave the example with where I started in red teaming. It's not a product market. It's very limited. The kind of ICP is going to be paying this much, and that doesn't really fund an enterprise VC-backed tool. So you need to understand and demonstrate those things. And then finally, I can't tell you how many people miss this in a pitch deck. How much are you asking for? Mm-hmm. Like they give the pitch and they're like, I'm trying to raise money. And people are like, how much are you trying to raise? Like, what are you doing? What was the point of the whole deck? Yeah. They leave that out. So even if you don't need that part, of course, to put your thinking together, covering those pieces of a pitch deck are really important to kind of strategically what you're trying to do.
So we've only got a couple minutes left, but we had a lot of great questions. So maybe like just a kind of a lightning round, if you can, on some of these more detailed questions. So Sierra says, if you're advising policymakers, investors, and founders at the same table, what's a strategic priority that you'd want all three aligned on?
Wow, that's a really big question. So I'm going to just look at the United States with this at a policy level. Healthcare and immigration are broken. You heard me talk about how the fact that I had to learn health insurance in 50 states. I think, and that's a cost because you need to provide health insurance, and health insurance is incredibly expensive. I don't know off the top of my head how much I spend on health insurance a year, but it is a lot of money. And so that is a friction point from administration and cost to innovation that we have in this country. Healthcare is broken. Second, immigration. Look, I get it. Illegal immigration, nobody wants that, but there's a lot of challenges here. And at the end of the day, we need access to talent, but not in the way that we've seen it where large companies are just firing Americans to bring in a bunch of cheap overseas workers. That's not the point of it either, right? It's not meant to profit off of us. And again, this is why I think we need sensible immigration strategy and policy, because it's, again, how all of us are going to be able to work with the best folks.
Chris Young says, what type of insurance are we looking at if it's a virtual business, like I guess like my business, right? Like online academy, online media stuff. What kind of insurance should we be getting?
Well, the easy answer, entirely virtual. So it's not really a question of whether it's entirely virtual. What you're going to find is your customers in a B2B are going to dictate insurance to you. So whether you're a consultant, it's kind of the easy thing. Don't worry about insurance until they tell you what they want. And then you're going to be arguing with them. I need, $2 million of umbrella commercial general liability, $1 million per incident, E&O at 500,000. Those are all the things that'll get dictated to you. So it's going to be part of understanding the customers in your market, because they're the ones who are going to dictate the standards of the insurance to you. That's really, I'd say, the most important thing.
Love and Peace says, how do we get some San Francisco circles interested in our product?
Yeah. So I cover this in my class. The capital markets are dominated by Silicon Valley. I think everybody knows that. There are lesser markets in Austin and DC and Boston and around, right? And this was a problem that I had, right? I was not a Silicon Valley guy. I was a national security government guy, East Coast Army officer. Silicon Valley didn't want to touch me with a 10-foot pole because I didn't have the relationships. I didn't have the reputation with them. And I had a lot of things that they innately criticized. In fact, one of the ones they criticized, this is, I think, very funny, is they're like, we don't think you're going to be able to spend enough money. You're going to be too conservative. We need people who can just burn cash. And I was like, okay, I'm serious. I literally got that feedback from multiple West Coast VCs.
That's wild.
So it is Love and Peace 33, it is going and building those relationships because it is a very insular community.
So it's all about networking. I love it. I say that all the time. And for career, being the CEO of you, knowing about relationships, because a lot of opportunities come through, they're not posted on the front page of a website, right? We've been talking with Bryson Bort, CEO, founder of Grim Cyber and Scythe. Bryson, where can people get some more Bryson in their life?
Sure. I do a bi-monthly webinar called Unicorn Dispatch Live. If you go to scythe.io under, I think it's events, you can see, and
we are going to do that right now.
All I do is I just bring on interesting people. In fact, thank you. That's Ted's book. That's my recommendation. If you're interested.
So that's the book. Yeah.
And then the consulting.
Unicorn what?
Unicorn Dispatch Live.
Okay. Oh, is it on YouTube? Is that where you do it?
Yep. You can catch us on YouTube.
All right.
There you go. So Perfect. There I am with Larry, who's the CISO. I just bring on interesting folks talking about different things that I find interesting, including other entrepreneurs. And so for those of you interested in the services base and the Anthropic partner system, I'm going to have Olivia and Kayla, who just launched their AI consultancy on in September, for example. So we just cover different people, different parts of industry, talk about interesting things.
I love it. All right. So Bryson's YouTube, I just linked it. It's under the Scythe YouTube channel, but he calls it the Unicorn Dispatch Live bi-monthly podcast. Go check it out. Bryson, are you going to be at Black Hat DEF CON Vegas summer camp?
Yep, I will be there. I co-founded and run the ICS Village with Tom Van Norman. So we've been a perennial stay at DEF CON. So I will be camped at the ICS Village if you want to come and say hi. And I think I'm on the keynote panel for Adversary Village.
I love it. As always, I will extend the invite to the Simply CyberCon meetup Friday from 4 to 7 p.m. I know you always have a conflict because of ICS Village, but I just want you to know that you're always invited and explicitly invited, not just an evergreen thing that you kind of always think about. But, maybe one year you can make it.
I would love to make it, man.
Yep. I love it. All right. Hey, guys, I want to say thank you so very much to our very special guest, Bryson Bort, who's been just dropping knowledge bombs on us. I can't believe an hour passed as quickly as it did. Also, shout out to the Tampa airport for all of their wonderful organization and engineering. Guys, as a community, y'all rock. You brought the questions here. Montgomery gets question of the show, giving Bryson a moment to pause on reflection. Thanks so much, everybody. I hope you got value. As always, we'll see you tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern time. Bryson, thanks so much for your time. And until next time, y'all, stay secure.